Oke, bisa kita mulai sekarang? Cek, cek. Suara saya sudah jelas? Atau masih kurang?
Sudah.
Sudah. Oke. Baik, kita mulai sekarang ya. Baik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahilladzi ja'ala ad-dunya darul imtihanat wat tajribat yamtahinal makhluqatil mawjudat fi hadhil kainat. Assalatu wassalamu ala afdhalil khalqi sayyidina wa maulana Muhammad al-mab'utsu ala kafatil anam wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Amma ba'd. Your Excellency Dr. Nikmah Rahmawati, MSc, as our lecturer, Wali Songo State Islamic University Semarang, and also honorable to the speakers of this event, and don't forget to all of the committee and also the participants of this event. And then, first of all, the greatest thanks to Allah Almighty who has been giving us His mercies and blessing without stopping from days to days, hours to hours, even seconds to seconds. Without those all, we will never be able to attend in this great agenda without any troubles and obstacles. Then salawat and salam always be given to our Prophet Nabiullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has been giving us his teachings to live in this world to the hereafter. Alright, in the beginning of the agenda, I would like to say welcome to this international seminar under the theme Youth Beyond the Limits, Education and Lifestyle Adjustment After COVID-19. Thank you very much for participating in this event. And beforehand, let me introduce myself first. My name is Indah Dharma. People call me Indah. Here I am as the MC and also the moderator. I will accompany you for about 90 minutes ahead. And I hope you join and enjoy this seminar. And before entering to the next session, we will have the opening speech by the chief of the committee. For Muhammad Iqbal Soleh, please, time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Bihi nasta'in wa la umuri dunya waddin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin sayyidina maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi washabihi ajmain. Amma ba'd. Well, hello everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining with us. Honorable, our great speakers, Miss Julia and Miss Suci, and all of the community and happy audience. First of all, in this occasion, I would like to welcome and thank you so much for joining with us in this webinar. And thank you for participating in this international webinar. Especially the honorable speakers, Ms. Julia and Ms. Suci, has been joining with us here. Thank you. We are now in webinar forum with the topic Youth Beyond the Limit, Education Lifestyle Adjustment After COVID-19. This event is one of the program series held via Songo State Islamic University Semarang. I think this topic very important and relevant, because the changes in lifestyle and education during this pandemic, we have to get used to the new normal habit that all take place through online platform. Students are forced to obtain education through online or learning from home. More than 1.5 billion students in the world cannot go to school because COVID-19 virus. This is a serious problem and challenge that we face together. And the question is how to respond to this situation appropriately. So the seminar is mainly talking about education and COVID-19 awareness. In this case, we need to discuss, innovate in finding common solution, especially a more effective lifestyle and education in the era COVID-19 pandemic. Um, Today we are very delighted and very happy because have been here two great speakers. First one is Miss Julia from USA. Uh, she is an education practitioner who had been teaching in Indonesia for 2 years. Wow. And second one is Miss Suci, Master of Sciences in Business and Economic Sweden, University of Halmstad, Sweden. Of course, her experience is very worthy to be shared in today's seminar. Thank you has been joining with us. I would like also thank you to the committee for preparing and organizing this seminar. And the last, I hope you guys join and follow this webinar to the plan in new normal era. Uh, Explain about education and lifestyle in new normal era. I mean, hopefully we'll get the fruitful information from this activity, and yeah, enjoy this webinar. Thank you very much. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm sorry, Indah. You are still mute.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. For Miss Julia, can you please show us yourself first and say hi to the audience?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So I'm Miss Julia. Really nice to see all of you, or, seeing as we do on Zoom now. Thank you to Indah for inviting me. She was one of my students when I was a teacher in Indonesia now.
Hi, Miss.
It's been a long time. So I wanted to help out with Indah when she asked, and I will be here talking to you guys about what things changed over here in the United States, especially so you guys are at university. I'm also at university too. And so we've had a lot of changes with the onset of COVID-19.
Yeah.
So Inda, do you want me to go ahead and just get rolling with the presentation?
I think you have to present your
On
CV first.
hopefully this
Explain yourself
works.
first.
Pardon?
I think you have to explain yourself first. I will show your CV and you can explain to the audience first.
Okay, so the CV is not one that I'm used to. Unfortunately, the CV is not actually commonly done here, which is interesting, but I can share screen real quick.
Okay.
Can I share screen? Ooh, I can. Exciting. Okay, so now you all see my screen. And just a little bit of introduction about me. Down here you see, so I'm Julia Liotti. I have a BA in philosophy, which is like saying I have an S1 in philosophy. And then I'm also right now a medical student at the University of Arizona College of Medicine. So in the United States, you actually do not go to medical school until you already have an S1. So for us, the process is a little different than it is for you in Indonesia. And so that's why I am still a student at 28.
It doesn't
I might
matter.
be a So yeah, that's me. And excuse you, presentation. There we go. So just a little bit more background about me. I was in the Peace Corps, as you all can see, and Inda can vouch that's usually what I looked like, pretty bingung. And I came here pretty soon after I graduated with my S1, and I think it's still the case, but Indonesia, the government just wanted English teachers. So when I came here, I did training to be an English teacher, and I wound up at Mansatu Ponorogo. But before that, I was a tutor for university students. So I did a lot of like English. I also was a cycling instructor for adults. So I taught adults how to commute and plan trips by bike. Inda probably remembers that I used to ride my bike everywhere, and I still do. And so over here in the US, we actually have like a small community of people that like to do things like take vacation on a bike. And so I was part of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I know it sounds a little bit weird, but it's not weird here.
All right.
And so like I said, I was a Peace Corps volunteer here for about 2.5 years. And I lived in Ponorogo the whole time, and I worked at Mansatu. It was really good experience for me because I'd never been a school teacher before. And I think that I probably learned more than my students learned, unfortunately.
Or Indonesian and many things.
It was a really good experience for me because it gave me a lot better idea of what I wanted to do when I went back home, because the Peace Corps time is only for 2 years, and you can extend 1 year if you demonstrate like need to do the extra year. But my project did not need that. So I was like, well, time to go home. So I came back here. And then I was actually probably another, let's see, almost, yeah, 2 years before I started medical school after I came back home. And that's because the process for getting into medical school when you're in the US is very long and pretty boring and pretty frustrating, honestly. So during that time, I was working both for a doctor. So I was like his assistant. I did a lot of his paperwork. I went to see patients with him. and I would keep track of all the details and help him do like the charting and the billing. I was like a very glorified office boy.
Oh my
And
God.
then I also worked in administration for a nonprofit group here in my hometown, which is Tucson, Arizona. And so I did a lot of their billing, and I did a lot of contact with parents, and I would write grants. So again, like a glorified office boy.
Oh my God.
And then I finally got into medical school, yay, after taking like an 8-hour test and writing like 50 pages of applications.
Oh. So you just
And
start your medical school?
Sorry, what was that?
So you just start your medical school just now?
I'm actually in my second year.
Oh, you're sitting.
Yeah, and my medical school does things a little different. So, at least in the United States, normally you do 2 years of what is called didactic learning, and that means classroom. So, I take a lot of classes and I do laboratory work and I take tests. And then you do 2 years of what they call clerkship, and that's when you actually are working in hospitals or clinics to get exposed to what different kinds of doctors do. At my school, we only do the classroom part for 1.5 years. So I'm done in December.
Right.
And then I take a giant 8-hour board exam in February. And as long as I
Right.
pass that, then I start my rotations and I start working in the hospital. And then I do that for 2 years. And then I have to apply to residency, which is when you decide what specific kind of doctor you want to be. And that's another 3 to 6 years, depending on which specialty you want to go into.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm probably going to be a student until I die.
No, it's not.
It's okay.
It's okay.
So yeah, that's me. If I know that, in Indonesian culture, it's a little bit different than American professional culture. Like I wouldn't start talking about my family, but if you guys want to know, I can tell you a little bit like about my family and where I'm from.
Okay.
Do you want me to talk a little bit about that or just go to presentation?
Maybe you can start your presentation first, then maybe after that we will have a question and answer session. The audience may ask everything about yourself or even the topic, feel in line with the topic. That's up to you.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I have to say like mohon maaf. Sudah 3 tahun sejak saya di Indonesia, bahasa Indonesia sudah jelek.
But it's still so good.
Okay, so I started off presentation just making a comparison. I think all of you know this very well since you're students and I'm a student. It's like the day before COVID started looks very different from what my days look like now. So I used, like you guys, you wake up really early for your first prayers, and I would wake up really early to go to the gym. So I'd go to the gym and I'd see my friends, and then I would have class all day on campus. And sometimes there would also be labs where I was working with professional teachers that taught me how to do things like the physical exam and use a stethoscope. And then usually I would bring my lunch. I'd eat in the lounge with my friends, my other classmates. We'd have study groups. When I went last year, I lived with roommates, and so I would.
Itu gimana? Ini loh, ini live.
Sorry, can you mute the audio first? The audience. I'm sorry, the audience may unmute first.
They're good now. We're good.
Oh, okay, you may continue.
That's fine. My cat jumped on me the other day, so Zoom is weird. So yeah, I spent like a lot of time with my classmates. I spent time with my roommates on the weekends because I have to study every day at this point, like you guys do. And so I'd study at my friend's house on the weekends. One of my sisters and my mom lives in the same town I do, so I'd go see them. But since COVID started, that's almost all different. At first I had to move back in with my mom because of just the craziness, but my mom lives far away from my school. So I did get my own apartment again, but there were a couple months where I was just like living on a couch. But I couldn't talk to anyone or I couldn't see them. And all of my classes were on Zoom, just like you guys. That was really frustrating. My mom is actually a nurse. She works in a hospital, so she's under a lot of stress right now. And I couldn't go visit my grandparents who live here in town because they're older and of course they're at higher risk. And so we didn't want them to get sick. And so just like you guys, it's been a huge change in this time. And it's been really frustrating too, to be totally honest. But I think one thing that you all have noticed as well is that it's everybody, not just students. Like my mom, I said she's a nurse. So she goes to work and then when she comes home, like she has a separate room in her house where she does her laundry. And so she has to like leave all of her clothes there and she won't talk to anyone or do anything until she like goes and showers. And now she can't go out and see people after work because even with the PPE, the personal protective equipment, like she doesn't want to accidentally spread the virus in case she has it. So far, alhamdulillah, she's been fine, but still she's scared. And her parents have not left their house in 9 months because they're elderly and at risk. My friends with kids have had a really hard time because they've had to start homeschooling their children. And I'm sure you guys all know it's hard to be a teacher. Like there's a lot of work that goes into it. And then when you're a parent, and now you have to be a parent and a teacher and you have to go to work if you still have a job, it's crazy. I think one of the biggest changes that I've noticed is just in the day-to-day, people are noticing how restricted they are. Like my friends and I used to go like get lunch at a restaurant after we took a test. Can't do that. We don't even go to school to take tests anymore. We have to take it on like a special computer that locks so we can't like cheat on it. It's just been like a really crazy time. And I think about you all in Indonesia where there are so many more people in a smaller space. And I can't imagine how frustrating that has been for you as well. Just the changes, like trying to stay safe, but also like everyone still has to go to work and go to school. It's really hard. And so one thing that I've been trying to do in this time is to come up with new ways to keep myself happy without putting anyone else at risk. And these are just a couple photos of examples. And I think that everyone over in Indonesia has also started doing these modified activities too. So like in this one on the upper right, this is actually a research trip that I was on over the summer. So I was riding my bike as I usually do, and I was actually interviewing people about their political ideas because we of course have a presidential election next week. And so I was doing a social research paper and these were the people that were working with me, but of course we all had to wear masks all the time. And so it was kind of weird at first, but I was surprised at how much easier it was than I thought it was going to be. So like I had the flexibility to do that. Not everybody does, but I think that it's at least an example of what's possible. Down here where you see the big fancy A, that's the logo for my university. We have this program called CUP, and it stands for Commitment to Underserved People. So that's usually people who are poor or don't have a lot of resources, or maybe they don't have a good support system like family. And so the students at the University of Arizona would hold these clinics every month. And so some clinics were to give vaccinations to toddlers, some were for women specifically, like health exams. Some were for family exams, like if you had like mom and kids that needed things. There were also ones for people with psychiatric illness. And when COVID first started, of course, they all had to close because it was all in person and we didn't know too much about the virus at first. And so we had to close all of it. But in the last 6 months, we've actually been able to reopen all of them, and we're doing what we call telehealth. So we're doing visits over Zoom now. And it's not the same, but I think it's been really good for us as a learning experience, but also for patients that really needed that care, because it's still okay for us to do the visits with them over Zoom and then write prescriptions if they need it. And so the cup clinics have been really meaningful to me and also a lot of the students because it's volunteer work. And that's something I know is really important to you guys as well in Indonesia. Like volunteering and doing community work is huge. So finding ways to start that up again has been really important to us. Another thing that we have many versions of this. It usually depends on the city or the state. But down here, the Remote Volunteer Project, it's basically volunteers that sign up for like a WhatsApp account and they call different seniors. For us can also mean elderly people. And so a lot of elderly people are basically stuck at home right now. And so what we've done, I joined one of these groups, is that we get like a short list of seniors that sign up for the service. And every week we just give them a phone call. And it's just to talk to them and see how they're doing. So it's not like I'm not a medical student on those calls. I'm just like a friendly neighbor. And it's been really helpful for them, but also for me, it's good for me to talk to other people. And then this last one over here is that I've just taken up drawing, and all the time I spend at home, I decided I was going to start drawing. So hobbies, that's important, right? Like I have a cat now, but I cannot spend the whole time petting my cat, so I have to take up something else. Sorry about that. There we go. And so I put all these photos up because these were all taken when I was in Indonesia. And I've been thinking a lot about you guys in Indonesia and how different it must be now. But I was also thinking about how at least in Ponorogo and in East Java, where I was, the culture, I think, is so well suited to learning how to adapt that I'm very confident that you guys are going to figure this out. Like, I remember when I first got there, I didn't have any friends, and I also hardly spoke Indonesian. And that was really difficult, but you all have such a welcoming and hard for me to find people to talk to. And I think that that is really something awesome about you guys. So like we used to have these youth camps, or I, did cooking experiments with some of my students. And I think these are things that you all can still do to forge that sense of community. You just have to be mindful of the safety, right? Like one question I have is, does everybody wear masks all the time there now? Like, how does it work for you guys? Because I have to wear a mask every time I leave my house. How about you guys?
I think that all of us also using mask every time, everywhere.
Yeah. And so did a lot of you like already have the masks for when you're riding motorcycles, or did you have to make more?
Sorry?
Did you already cycle, or did you have to make new ones?
I'm sorry, but my connection is not good enough.
Oh, no. Internet. Sorry, I think my internet is getting patchy.
Wait, you might continue.
Don't freeze.
It's freezing. Oh, that's me.
A little bit here and there. Hopefully it holds out. But so the point that I was getting at is that I think you guys in Indonesia are already experts at adapting, really. And so I think that one of the biggest problems that we've had in America is not everybody being safe. And that's been hard because I'm sure you guys know the number of COVID infections has gotten really high here,
Yeah.
which makes me very frustrated. But in Indonesia, I think my experience was that you all are really thoughtful about your friends and your family and your neighbors.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a strength that you guys can definitely use in this situation. Like if you care about your friends and family and neighbors and you make sure to wear your mask and wash your hands a lot, I think you can definitely do activities. Maybe not with a huge group of people, but like a small group of people, and you're all careful to do the hand washing and the masks. With your attitude about wanting everyone to be safe and healthy, I think you guys can definitely do it. I mean, already there are some other countries like Japan, they've come back from this really fast with not that many infections. And I think it's because, like you guys, they're really thoughtful about their neighbors. And so one thing that I went and found, and this is just like if you guys want to look at it, but you all already know how important it is to be connected to your friends and family, right? Like that's a huge part of your lives. And the funny thing is that since the COVID infections got bad here, now a lot of other countries are also figuring that out. So like this article is just to a website that's by a major hospital system here in the United States. The Mayo Clinic does so much treatment and so much research. So the fact that they are writing an article about how important connection is during COVID just tells you that it's really serious here.
Yeah.
And so I thought of Indonesia immediately because I was like, well, they already figured that out. And so I think maybe the hard thing for you guys is not being able to see all the people you want to see. Yeah, that's hard. But one thing that I also noticed is that I am doing pretty well with this. Like I'm good at entertaining myself. I make sure to call people. I've actually been writing a lot of letters to my friends. Like
So
we're doing.
you send your letter to your friends?
I do, yeah. And so they send letters back. And
That's
so
great.
again, a way to stay connected. But I think part of the reason that I've been doing well is because when I lived in Indonesia, I participated in Ramadan. And that just was so much time to reflect on the things that were important to me. And you guys do that every year.
Yeah.
And so again, I think you are all really well prepared to figure out ways to just change things a little bit so that they work and they still meet the need of keeping everyone connected. I honestly think that's the most important thing. Like if everyone wore a mask and washed their hands and stayed home and didn't talk to anyone, I'm sure the infections would go away sooner, but we'd also all be really sad.
Yeah.
So we have to find a balance. And if that means you have to see some people, that's what it means. You just have to be more careful. Like there's an expression in English and it's no man is an island. And what that means is it's impossible for you to just exist as like one thing by yourself.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Like even Indonesia is not just one island, it's many islands.
Yeah.
You know, island friends. And so in this time, I know America, and I'm sure you all have had much more time than usual to reflect on what is actually important to us. Like, is going to a restaurant important, or is it being able to see my friends that's important? And so for me, it's like I can live without restaurants, but I have to be able to talk to my friends and family. And so that's how I'm going to make my adjustments.
Mm.
On presentation. There we go. And so one of the things that I found is that if you look here on the left, these are some of the ideas that people will share. Like, these are things you should do to stay connected or to spend your time. But they don't always work, you know? Like, writing in a journal sometimes works, but you're also still alone. So if you already feel lonely, that doesn't necessarily help. And so what I did is on the right, I actually made a list of the things that I do and that help me. And I think you guys probably do them too, but if not, I'd say like give them a try. So I do write my thoughts down, especially if it's like a good thought. Rarely they come by. But the other thing that I like to do is I will go find like an article on Wikipedia, or I'll look up a funny video and I'll text it to my friends. And then every day we have something new to talk about. So even if I can't see them, I can at least talk to them. And that's really important. Or like with Zoom and WhatsApp, video chatting has been huge for me. Especially, like, I have not seen my grandparents in 9 months, even though they live like over there.
In the same city?
Yeah, they live very close by. I could walk to them, but I haven't actually gone there because like they're both a little older and my grandfather actually has lung problems. So we're like, stay in the house.
Okay.
But I video chat with them, and that's been really important to us because social connection is even more important for older people, like especially when you can't, like, say, go to work because you're retired. You still need to see people. So the daily conversation starter has been pretty fun. If you don't use Wikipedia, their article of the day is actually pretty interesting. I have learned a lot of things that I never ever knew about before through Wikipedia. A lot of people told me, try a new project when you're at home. And I was like, yeah, but what if I want to like build a house? That's not really a project I can do right now. And so what I did is I was like, okay, well, I already have, say, paper and pencils. So my project will be drawing a picture. And maybe it takes me a week to do it or 2 weeks, whatever. It's something that I commit like 10 or 20 minutes a day to. And it's a way to keep doing new things. Or I have this little watch now and it counts my steps. And so I try and get in like 12,000 steps a day. And so it buzzes at me when it's time to go walking. And I was like, you know, it's probably a good thing for me to have healthy habits.
Yeah.
And so, like, just little things. You don't need to like make a gym in your house if you don't want to. I think it's just important to remember to be nice to yourself. Like, if you're sitting all day, it gets kind of boring and also your back hurts. So like, you know, just get up for 10 minutes, stretch a little bit, just something to take care of yourself. Because what I like to think is that if you don't take care of yourself, then you cannot take care of your friends and family. You know, if you're sick, then you're not going to be able to help them if they are sick. The visiting relatives, I think, has been tough for a lot of us. What my family actually did is one of my sisters lives here, and she only, like, she sees her roommates because they live together, and she sees me like every week or two, but otherwise she doesn't see anybody else. And so we're pretty sure that she does not have the virus and she can get tested. And so she became the person that can go visit our grandparents in person and check on them. And she'll do their grocery shopping for them. And so I think that even though it's hard, especially when you want to take care of relatives but also protect them, it's probably worth a try to have one family member be the one that actually sees them in person so that you limit how many people might possibly bring the virus to them. But then that way you at least have someone that goes to see them. I know that that's been a really hard thing for people, and I hope that it's not like this for too much longer. But I do really encourage people to make sure that you're not like passing the virus around, as it were.
Yeah.
Over here, like, I don't actually read that many books for fun anymore. I read like plenty of books for school. Not that they're fun, but so what I did is that I decided I would have like a friend book movie article club. And it was like we all would send each other the links or recommendations to like a short video or like an article that was interesting, like something that you can read in 10 or 20 minutes or just a shorter video you can watch. And again, that way I can talk to my friends, but also it's something that I can fit into my schedule. I think a lot of the changes that we have to make are really, really individual. Like, if you guys have more or less time than I do, like maybe you limit yourself to 5-minute videos.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're able to watch a new movie every week. Like, I have a friend that watches a movie every week that someone else recommends to her. And so that way, after she watches it, she can call them or text them or write them a letter. And then she's able to talk with them about something and they can connect about that new topic. And that's been really important for her.
Okay.
I think the last one is really, really big for both me and for you guys, and that's the volunteering.
Yeah.
Like, I do miss that. I miss having the in-person clinics at school. But one thing we have done is we made a clinic that's for homeless people specifically. And so like there's an area where they wait and they get some basic medical care, and we wear like the hospital gowns and masks, gloves, but then we also have a section where people are making like like to-go lunches, and they can put those items in a bag on a table and then leave. And then the homeless people can pick up the food, and so we call it no contact. And so no contact is the new buzzword for us, but it makes it that we can at least still help people, even if it's a little different. So like we said, dropping off meals to people, I think that's something in Indonesia you could definitely do. Like if you know there's a neighbor, or maybe like an older neighbor that's having a hard time getting around, like arranging that someone stops by and leaves food on their doorstep is something you can totally do. And I know that you guys already do stuff like that.
When it found, and this is just like if you guys want to look at it, but
Sorry to the participants. Please mute your audio first because the speaker is still speaking. I sorry for the noise. So noisy.
You're fine. This is the era of Zoom now. We just have to learn.
Yeah. Okay, you may continue.
I think there goes my thoughts. Right, the no contact. Again, like I know culturally that's really weird to like avoid people, but the way that I think about it is that I am not avoiding them. I'm just making sure that they don't get sick. And that's number one priority. And then this is just my last slide. I like to call it my public service announcement, is that it's really hard right now. If you're spending a lot of time alone, or if you're far away from your family, like I know a lot of you are not living really close to your family right now, or maybe your friends had to go home, whatever. It's really hard right now. And when you feel lonely, it makes everything seem really bad. So if you feel like really sad, if you get angry sometimes, if you're anxious or depressed, like all of that is normal. And there's nothing wrong with feeling like that. It's just part of being human. The only thing that's wrong is if you think that nobody wants to help you. Absolutely not true. There's always somebody that wants to listen, that wants to be there for you. Phone call, video call, text. There's always someone that loves you. And so, you know, just remember that you've made it through all of your hardest days so far, and you can make it through these ones too. And, you know, semangat, or, you know, semangka to say.
Semangat.
And these are my mom's cats.
Oh my god, so cute.
Yeah. This is a little girl and this is a little boy. Together all the time.
Okay.
And so that's my presentation. I'm going to go ahead and stop share.
Yeah.
And then at this time, Inda, you're the boss, but I think you said some Q&A.
Okay. So this time will be question and answer session. So the audience, you are allowed to ask everything and still in line with the topic. But I found that one question from the chat box. Can I read it directly?
Sure.
Okay. This is from Miss Ermina MPD. How is United States government role in passing pandemic toward United States citizen?
So that's been a pretty difficult one because I'm sure you all know right now that America is very divided about the government because we're pretty divided about the president.
Yeah.
Like, I, for one, not a fan. So I think that our government has not done enough to make this a public health priority faster and put more, we called it shelter in place. So like staying home as much as possible, wearing masks. We took a really long time to make those priorities. And I think that's why we have so many sick people right now. So I think that our government did not do a very good job. Not the federal government, which is like the country, but at the more local level. So like cities, some cities did a really good job and they are trying really hard to help people. So it's kind of like Indonesia, where it can be very different depending on what part we're talking about. But I think in terms of the federal, like highest up government, we have a lot of improvement we need to do about how the government communicates things to citizens and how they make health a priority for citizens.
So that's the answer. Thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much for answering the question. And now I will read the next questions. This is from Tiara Dita. How to make us productive while at home?
Oh, I know. Sometimes, like, home is very distracting
Yeah.
because sometimes I'll study and then I'm like, nah, I'm gonna play with the cat.
Yeah.
But so one thing that I've started doing is just on my phone, you know how you can set an alarm
Mhm.
or like a timer?
Yeah.
So what
Reminder.
yeah, I'll set my timer for like 30 minutes or maybe 60 minutes. So half an hour or 1 hour. And during that time, I just focus on my study because when the timer goes off, I give myself a 15-minute break so that I get up, I move around, maybe I just do something fun for 15 minutes or take a nap. But
Mhm.
so for me, it really helps to know like, okay, if I just go for this amount of time, then I get a break because
Okay.
you can't just do the same thing all day. So you have to be able to give yourself some time to relax so that you can go back to working hard.
Okay. So the first thing that you have to do is setting the reminder. Then
Mm,
you have to take a break and go back to work again.
yeah.
This is what I got. And then to the next questions. Pandemic has been enduring almost 7 months right now. How do you remind yourself to wear masks and keep the health alive? Since we have tendency to be reluctant to go some places like grocery shopping and tend to eat junk food. How do you cope with that?
It's true. That is really hard sometimes. So, what I did is I tried to set up my house so that it would be, we call it conducive, but like an environment that helps me be healthy. So, like where I put my keys when I come home, all my masks are sitting right there. So it always reminds me to put a mask on when I go out, like grocery shopping. I actually write down the food that I need. So
Mhm.
that way, when I go to the store, I have my mask on and I have my grocery list and I can just buy exactly what I need and then leave. I have a yoga mat that I leave on the floor so that every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, I should probably like stretch or like do some push ups or something.
Mm.
And I also like, it's kind of sad, but in my house, because otherwise I will eat it.
Mhm. Okay. So the main point is just buy the things you really need and say to put your mask on.
Yeah.
So the next question is, hello Miss, may I ask how often do you have to go out and what is that? Just how strict is the protocol to wear a mask and social distancing? And you have to meet people that are stubborn to follow the rule.
So I probably have to go out like 3 times a week.
Mm.
Once per week because I do actually go into the hospital once a week as part of my education. And so then I'm like mask, gloves, covered,
Mm.
and then I go grocery shopping. But being near people that don't take precautions is difficult because I don't know if they're sick. I don't know who they've been talking to.
Yeah.
So what I did is that the number of people that I actually have close interactions with, I made that number very small, and
Mhm.
it's all people that I know are serious about precautions. So like when I go out, if someone is not wearing a mask, I
Mhm.
just don't go anywhere near them.
Okay.
And I ask my friends if they will get tested because our university will do testing for the students. So
Mm.
we all go and get tested like every week or every 2 weeks. And so
Oh,
that way we can update each other like I'm still good.
okay. let's jump to the next questions.
Mhm.
Have you ever been overwhelmed by a schedule or something? Do you, how do you handle it?
Oh, every day.
Every day is kind of overwhelming.
Every yeah, I think that there will always be something that overwhelms you. Like there is no time in life, I think, where you don't have lots of stuff that you have to take care of.
Mhm.
And for me, sorry, excuse me.
It's okay.
For me, I have like a group chat. So some of my classmates, and right now school is really, really busy for me because like that's my cat.
Oh my god.
Yeah, wait. Whiny. Whiny.
Hi.
This is Cow. Happy. Oh, Cowie. Here you go. Sit on the book. Weirdo. So when things that are related to school really stress me out, I immediately talk to my classmates because I think if something is worrying you and you don't tell anyone, then it just sits in your head and makes you crazy. And so I make sure to always talk to someone. And I also make a schedule for myself. Like I write out what I'm going to do every day
Wow.
so that I know, okay, today, like these are the things I need to do. And when I'm able to finish my tasks, then I feel more relaxed.
Okay.
Oh, is it playtime? Is it playtime?
So I will read the next questions. How do you manage your mind to stay positive with this condition?
That's a good question. So, a big part of it for me is staying active, which is why I have my yoga mat and I have, like on YouTube, I will look up exercise videos because if I can take 20 or 30 minutes to just do something active, I really feel better. And so being able to exercise or remembering to take a break and just move around for 15 minutes, that helps me calm down a lot. I also try and remember that, even though I have all these things for school to do, I should take like an hour every day to just like read something I like or watch some YouTube videos, just something that's not school because we're not robots. We can't do school all the time.
Yeah. I think the main key is staying positive. Also, um, sorry, I mean that having a happy feeling is also a part of having a positive thinking.
It is, yeah. And so I definitely prioritize like doing those things that make me happy.
Yeah. So
Like
this is
happy.
all right. So I will move to the last questions. This is from Emilia Palupi. What's your opinion about fresh graduate who graduate in this pandemic? What should we do to compete with other? As we know, this pandemic made many workers out from their job, losing job is something like this. And also because this pandemic, our study become not maximal.
That's a good question. I think people that are graduating right now are entering a really different and difficult world. I don't have the answer for that, unfortunately. one thing I do think is important, like if you're graduating and you're going into like find a job, but things have changed a lot, you might need to consider, well, my degree might be in this, but maybe for a while I have to do something else just because opportunities have changed. And I know that that's disappointing, but I also think that if you decide that your attitude will be, this is a chance for me to get new skills or to do something that I never thought I would do, that will help you be more motivated in the long run. Because maybe when things get better, you can go find a job in the area that you want, but you'll bring with it those new skills that you had to learn during this pandemic. And new skills are always good. It makes you a more interesting person, it makes you a stronger person, and it makes you better at your job.
So what I've got from here is upgrading our skills first. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
and being open to doing something that you didn't think about at first.
okay. So that's all the question and answer session. Thank you very much for those who give the questions here. And I'm so sorry that I'll not allow you to ask everything here because we just have a very limited time. And thank you very much for Miss Julia. Thank you for sharing. And now we will move to the second session with Miss Suci Ariyanti.
Thank you all for your time. I hope you do really well. Stay safe. Thanks, Inda.
Thank you, Miss. So, bye. And we will move to the second session.
Halo, aku boleh ngomong sekarang?
Okay, Kak Suci.
Yeah, is it better to use English or I can just use Indonesian?
You're allowed to speak in bahasa.
Oke. Sebelumnya, halo teman-teman semua, nama saya Suci Ariyanti, biasa dipanggil Suci. Sebelumnya saya udah kirim presentasi sih ke Iva, atau Indah sudah dapat, atau lebih baik saya share screen dari sini?
Kakak boleh share.
Oh, boleh?
Boleh.
Oh, oke, sebentar. Saya harus buka dulu. Bentar ya.
Ma?
Oke. Oke, selamat pagi Indonesia. Jam berapa sekarang? Jam 10 ya? Jam 10 lewat. Kebetulan saya saat ini posisinya lagi di Jerman, jadi masih jam 4 pagi, jam 4.15.
So sorry, Kak.
No, nggak apa-apa. Makanya tadi masuknya agak telat, tapi presentasi dari Julia sangat menarik. Makanya tadi sempat nanya sih, better in English atau Indonesia, karena sebenarnya presentasinya prepare in English, tapi bicaranya prepare-in bahasa aja gitu. So, jadi karena tema hari ini adalah tentang education and life adjustment after COVID-19. Terima kasih sebelumnya sudah mengundang karena saya merasa pada beberapa informasi tentang COVID mungkin saya belum memahami banyak, karena jujur aja selama COVID pandemic saya nggak banyak ngeliatin angka, karena saya ngerasa kalau ngeliatin angka tiap hari itu jadi stres sendiri gitu.
Iya, betul.
Jadi nggak begitu banyak memperhatikan tren, tapi kurang lebih ngeliatin sih gimana impact-nya COVID ke sisi edukasi sendiri. Ini cover depannya foto waktu saya kuliah sebelumnya di Swedia. Saya next dulu aja. Oke, nama saya Suci Ariyanti. Sebelumnya S1 kuliah di IPB. Setelah dari IPB sempat kerja di salah satu institusi keuangan di Jakarta sebelum akhirnya lanjut kuliah ke Swedia S2 selama 2 tahun. Itu under beasiswa dari Swedish Institute Scholarship. Gitu. Sekarang saya mentor di Etude Edu Indonesia. Oke. Jadi impact COVID ke dunia pendidikan. Ini saya ambil datanya sebenarnya dari oecd.org. Bisa nanti mungkin kalau teman-teman mau baca PDF-nya juga saya bisa share di akhir atau saya kirim ke Indah ya.
Iya.
Buat di-share ke teman-teman lain. Tapi memang OECD ini dia fokus di data untuk negara-negara yang tergabung di membernya OECD. Dan kebanyakan negara-negara Eropa. Tapi secara besarannya, impact-nya mirip-mirip gitu sama apa yang kita alami di Indo. Itu secara khusus ada berapa nih? 1, 2, 5, ada 8. 2 yang impact ke student atau finance secara langsung, dan sisanya itu 6, itu impact-nya besar lebih ke institusi pendidikan sendiri gitu. Baik itu universitas ataupun sekolah. Teman-teman bisa baca di sini, tapi memang kalau untuk institusi itu banyak challenge-nya lebih yang kayak biasanya kalau kelas diadakan secara pertemuan gitu, temu muka, sekarang kan semuanya harus shifting ke digital. Nah, itu tuh yang sebenarnya mungkin khususnya di negara berkembang kayak Indonesia tuh belum familiar gitu untuk mengaplikasikan itu, nggak cuma di student-nya tapi mostly di gurunya. Itu karena masih banyak hal-hal yang kita masih rely sama nulis gitu, atau ya itu tatap muka, materi juga mungkin masih handout, paper, dan juga ada beberapa yang paling bawah mungkin kalau teman-teman lihat itu vocational education, itu kayak pendidikan yang membutuhkan memang praktik ya, atau vokasi kalau dalam bahasa Indonesia, gitu. Nah, tapi yang akan saya bahas lebih ke student-nya, itu yang impact banget memang di international student mobility. Karena kalau teman-teman mau studi ke luar negeri dan banyak teman-teman di Indonesia mau kuliah ke, itu nggak apa-apa ya, itu kayak ada. Teman-teman mau kuliah ke Eropa, itu sebenarnya bahkan di Eropa sendiri 6% dari student di tingkat lanjut, tertiary students tuh di level S1, S2, S3. Itu ada 6% dari non-European countries, gitu, non-OECD countries. Jadi, dan 6% itu pun termasuk dari 22% doctoral program. Nah, COVID itu impact, oke, itu ada coretan, bentar nggak?
Teman-teman mohon jangan mencoret screen ya, biar
Nanti
speakernya
share aja.
yang
Terakhir, iya aku jadi tidak terlihat. Sorry.
It's okay.
Iya, terus krisis ini jadi khususnya efek untuk students yang mau lanjut kuliahnya juga. Jadi kalau dilihat dari aku subscribe juga di newsletternya Times Higher Education, itu banyak students yang akhirnya reconsider untuk tetap berangkat kuliah ke luar negeri di 2020 ini. Karena satu, karena semuanya shifting ke online, seberapa worth it kah untuk berada di sana gitu, untuk benar-benar kuliah, karena expenses-nya kan akan banyak, sama aja gitu. Terus kedua, itu terkait value, terus continuity of learning-nya juga masih tanda tanya, karena bukan cuma di Indonesia, tapi di negara manapun, di US atau di Europe atau di maksudnya kayak sebelumnya saya di Swedia pun sebenarnya udah lumayan digital kuliahnya, udah banyak banget pakai digital tools, tapi memang nggak bisa tetap menghilangkan dulu itu meskipun digital tools tuh hanya ada untuk support gitu. Tetap main activities-nya harus tetap ke kelas, diskusi sama dosen dan segala macam. Nah, ini kan sebenarnya semua negara diwajibin nggak ketemu sama sekali. Nah, itu pun adaptasi yang sulit untuk semua negara gitu. Jadi makanya continuity of learning-nya pun juga masih dipertanyakan. Dan yang terakhir, meskipun misalnya studentnya yang udahlah nggak apa-apa tetap berangkat gitu, yang penting berangkat kuliah keluar. Ternyata juga regulasi dari sisi imigrasi juga belum memungkinkan dalam beberapa bulan sebelumnya. Sekarang udah lebih baik, tapi dari Maret sampai Juli atau Agustus kemarin tuh kurang lebih banyak negara yang masih belum memberikan student visa untuk international students. Contohnya, Australia baru aja buka, tapi sebelumnya itu dia blok semua international students yang masuk ke Australia. UK buka, Juni atau Juli, tapi sebelumnya memang nggak boleh ada masuk sama sekali. Juga terus EU sampai sekarang karena EU kan negaranya banyak juga ya, jadi tiap negara punya otoritasnya sendiri untuk mengeluarkan student visa itu. Nah, kalau case Swedia itu, sampai di Juni, itu teman-teman yang mau kuliah ke Swedia tuh yang kebetulan aku kontak, memang lumayan ketar-ketir tuh ini berangkat atau enggak nih, ini bisa atau enggak, karena sampai di Juni belum ada keputusan yang jelas untuk apakah teman-teman itu bisa berangkat atau enggak. Apalagi yang pakai beasiswa gitu. Maksudnya beasiswanya tetap ada, tapi kalau nggak berangkat beasiswanya hangus. Jadi kayak serba salah pada
Iya.
saat itu. Tapi untungnya di Juli regulasinya keluar bahwa untuk kampus yang at least 50% class attendance and 50% online itu student-studentnya di-granted visa untuk student.
Oh.
Itu sih in short. Tapi memang COVID ini impact banget di mobilitas international student. Aku next ya.
Iya.
Academic system after COVID. Ini aku taruh tanda tanya karena kayaknya nggak ada yang benar-benar tahu jawabannya. Dan sampai sekarang kita masih dalam apa namanya era COVID juga. COVID-nya belum selesai. Tapi memang kalau untuk institusi yang paling banyak dipertanyakan itu adalah kapan dan gimana untuk reopen schools. Kalau di Indonesia kan memang aku rasa pemerintah atau Kementerian Pendidikan udah lumayan baik itu menerapkannya, meskipun tentunya itu pro dan kontra juga ya. Cuma kan memang ada beberapa area dari sisi pemerintah pusat sendiri kan memang menentukan beberapa area yang apakah itu zona merah, zona hitam, zona hijau, dan sebagainya. Dan keputusannya diturunkan dari Kementerian Pendidikan ke pemerintah lokal untuk apakah di daerah ini udah boleh nih membuka sekolah atau enggak. Nah, itu sebenarnya mirip-mirip kayak yang tadi dijelaskan sama Julia, bahwa di Indonesia pun sebenarnya top down-nya udah bagus, tapi implementasinya kadang itu memang masih sulit untuk dikontrol gitu. Jadi kita nggak bisa yang 100% nyalahin pemerintah pusat, karena sebenarnya pemerintah lokal kita sendiri pun, Pemda atau kabupaten, kecamatan tuh juga ada turut partisipasi gitu untuk menentukan sekolah buka atau enggak. Tapi memang gimana bukanya pun itu juga masih, semuanya masih uji coba gitu. Apakah khususnya buat anak-anak sekolah yang kecil ya, ini mungkin di di gambar yang kanan. Di sini kelihatan bahwa yang paling terdampak tuh sebenarnya anak-anak. Kelihatan bahwa pergerakannya dari Maret sampai Juli itu meningkat drastis, affected children yang nggak bisa sekolah karena sekolahnya ditutup gitu. Dan untuk shifting dari sekolah ke digital juga kan nggak secepat itu. Makanya sekarang akhirnya masih kecil banget jumlah anak-anak yang udah bisa berangkat. Di situ kelihatan tuh yang abu-abu. Sisanya national schools tutup, localized school tutup gitu. Dan yang paling tinggi itu justru anak-anak yang ada di low or lower middle income countries. Indonesia kayaknya masuk ke middle income, karena aku nggak tahu nih ini breakdown datanya sebenarnya countries-nya yang mana aja. Tapi ya untuk yang di low and lower middle income lumayan affected banyak banget. Ini yang kiri step-step untuk sekolah sih. Gimana cara menerapkan pembukaan sekolah tuh yang pertama coba melakukan risk assessment buat staffnya, terus protokolnya harus clear banget dan strict banget untuk dilakukan. Terus yang ketiga jumlah kehadiran juga nggak bisa sama kayak sebelumnya, itu harus direvisi. Apakah udah cukup mengakomodasi student-student yang absen karena masalah kesehatan gitu. Dan yang keempat, harus memastikan bahwa jumlah training yang tersedia untuk guru dan staff-staff lain tuh cukup gitu. Karena balik lagi kalau guru dan staff yang akan melakukan keseluruhan aktivitas di sekolah kan itu harus benar-benar di training bahwa kondisi yang sekarang nggak sama kayak yang sebelumnya gitu. Dan sisanya ini yang dua yang ada di dalam adalah terus build infrastructure dan kapasitas untuk studi jarak jauh. Oke, how to tackle the boundaries and lifestyle after COVID. Ini juga saya ambil dari rekomendasinya UNESCO. Secara besaran sebenarnya ada 9, dan ini applicable to institusi dan juga students keseluruhan. Tapi mungkin saya nggak akan bacain semuanya, nanti bisa teman-teman baca sendiri, karena PowerPoint-nya juga udah aku share ya. Tapi mungkin yang pengen saya highlight kalau dari sisi students, itu yang nomor 3, yang protect data privacy sama data security. Kenapa? Karena kalau semuanya aktivitas itu diadakan secara online, otomatis itu data-data semua teman-teman itu kan bahkan sebelumnya ya dengan adanya sosial media gitu, kita udah contribute data pribadi atau data-data basic kayak nama, tempat tanggal lahir, alamat, atau apalagi biasanya. Bahkan ada beberapa mungkin aplikasi financing atau peer-to-peer lending yang punya KTP kamu atau sebagainya. Nah, dengan adanya COVID, ini justru lebih luas lagi gitu. Ada sekian banyak data yang secara online, setiap kita ikutan Zoom, setiap kita ikutan webinar, aktivitas apapun online, itu semua data kalian pribadi itu terekam dengan sangat besar. Jadi, make sure kalau kalian mengerti apa aja batasannya data apa aja yang harus kamu share dan data apa aja yang enggak, dan rajin baca-baca tentang regulasi data security. Di Indonesia kayaknya kita punya, sebelumnya itu teman-teman misalnya suka buka website Europe tuh, di Europe ada regulasi tentang data privacy, kalian dilindungi under GDPR regulation. Itu bisa sambil baca-baca. Tapi memang kayak kalau mau dibilang strict banget juga jangan, karena pas selama pandemi kan kita rely banget sama online. Jadi susah juga kalau nanti nggak mau, saya mau data saya terlindungi, saya nggak mau ikut aktivitas online, kan nggak bisa juga gitu karena semua informasi online. Jadi saya lebih menghimbau, tahu aja batasannya dan tahu harus apa, dan kalau terjadi hal yang nggak tahu harus kemana gitu. Itu. Sisanya kurang lebih provide support to digital tools, harus tahu gimana cara maintain psychological challenge yang ada dalam diri sendiri sebelum belajar, sebelum mengajar, dan lain-lainnya terkait aktivitas studi. Tentang beasiswa dan kuliah ke luar negeri, karena sebelumnya mungkin saya pernah ngobrol sama Indah ya tentang beasiswa juga dan kuliah keluar. Di sini juga mungkin info buat teman-teman yang mau kuliah keluar. Aku mau nanya kali ya, ini kebanyakan studentnya S1 atau?
S1, Kak.
S1. Nah, untuk beasiswa sendiri, beasiswa apa yang paling terkena? Apakah banyak sih pertanyaan yang nanya, beasiswa tutup nggak kalau selama pandemi gitu? Nah, tergantung beasiswanya, karena beasiswa kan juga ada banyak banget. Tapi yang saya tahu, yang beasiswa yang di hold, itu ada Australian Award Scholarship ke Australia sama New Zealand Award Scholarship. Itu so far masih pending, belum ada kabar. Tapi untuk beasiswa yang saya pajang di sini, ada beasiswa Swedia, Belanda, Inggris, Jerman, itu setahu saya masih buka. Dan LPDP baru aja keluarin pengumuman beberapa minggu yang lalu, kalau dari sekian kategori LPDP, itu 2 yang buka tahun ini, tapi sisanya nggak buka. Jadi kalau teman-teman mau sambil lihat-lihat. Yang 2 itu pun LPDP itu 1 beasiswa yang top 10 atau top 100 Ivy League unis only, kalau sebelumnya kan banyak tuh nih. Dan juga satu lagi kalau nggak salah beasiswa untuk guru ya, atau nanti bisa dilihat sama teman-teman, tapi ada spesifik satu profesi, beasiswa untuk profesi tertentu. Dan yang di sebelah kanan lebih ke tips sih, gimana kalau mau kuliah ke luar negeri dan selama pandemik itu harus apa gitu. Jadi yang pertama lebih banyak get used to digital tools menurutku gitu. Mungkin teman-teman juga udah lebih get used karena kita udah 7 bulan juga ya melewati corona. Benar, itu yang pertama sama yang keempat sebenarnya mirip-mirip. Tapi ada beberapa kayak orang kan gaya belajarnya juga beda-beda gitu, dan ada beberapa yang nggak ada ikut webinar, pengennya ikutan yang kayak video based learning. Itu ada Udemy kalau teman-teman mau bayar per video untuk belajar satu skill tertentu, atau ada juga misalnya yang tetap mau kuliah di kampus ternama tapi cuma mau course tertentu aja, itu distance learning class ada di Coursera juga, teman-teman bisa cek. Terus saya pribadi karena saya juga mentor online, itu biasanya sih selalu pakai Google Drive dan Google Sheets kapanpun dan dimanapun gitu, karena di Google Drive kan lengkap banget. Ada Words-nya, ada Excel-nya, dan semuanya free. Tapi memang untuk bisa rapih di perdigitalan, kadang Google Drive-nya juga bisa berantakan, itu harus kayak get used to make everything neat, karena kalau berantakan juga akhirnya pusing, stres, so kayak nggak mau belajar lagi. Itu terus udah banyak, itu teman-teman bisa lihat, jadi bisa lihat corona sebagai satu momen kali ya untuk berada di rumah dan prepare semaksimal mungkin. Sambil belajar bahasa, sambil praktis, apakah itu conversation kah, atau tadi misalnya dengar Julia bicara, terus training, listening better gitu. Terus look for mentors online, sekarang juga banyak tempat-tempat yang juga provide mentor-mentor yang bisa dihubungi secara online. Sama terakhir itu PR semua orang, harus selalu keep yourself motivated. Karena itu tidak mudah, tapi kita harus terus coba.
Betul, Kak.
Ini beasiswa aku yang mungkin sedikit aja buat teman-teman yang mau S2. Sebelumnya saya di Swedia itu under Swedish Institute Scholarship. Nah, ini beasiswanya full covered. Jadi tiap bulan dapat living expenses, terus kuliah juga udah gratis karena dibayarin langsung dari Swedish Institute ke kampus masing-masing. Terus travel grant juga dapat. Jadi teman-teman gak usah khawatir lagi soal pesawat. Terus dapat asuransi juga. Sama yang 2 terakhir ini adalah membership untuk ada di komunitas SI Network of Future Global Leaders saat dalam waktu beasiswa ataupun setelah beasiswa selesai. Jadi ini kayak lifetime membership gitu. Nah, ini full semuanya. Kebetulan ini admission-nya ke kampus lagi buka dan beasiswanya nanti di Februari gitu. Tapi memang teman-teman harus sudah lulus dulu. salah satu syaratnya. Jadi kalau masih S1 bisa prepare mungkin buat tahun depan atau 2 tahun lagi ya. Itu. Ya, terakhir, ini key takeaway sih. Kayak terakhir akan terus ada banyak perubahan yang berlaku. Semua pemerintah saya rasa di berbagai negara tetap uji coba berbagai macam. Kalau dalam teknologi judulnya A/B testing kali ya. Kayak uji coba ini benar atau enggak, ini salah atau enggak, ini berhasil atau enggak. Jadi kita kita yang bukanlah pengambil keputusan, kita pengikut aja keputusannya apa, harus benar-benar punya adaptability level yang tinggi gitu. Dan coba lihat apapun secara positif, intinya biar nggak stres sendiri. Terus kalau mau kuliah keluar, lihat ini sebagai pengalaman bukan pengalaman, kesempatan untuk prepare dari rumah. Lihat banyak online information karena banyak banget information dan preparation yang ada online. Sabar, tetap terus mencoba, dan pantang menyerah. Dan terakhir, apapun yang kalian mau gitu, saya percaya kalau kesempatan yang bagus tuh akan selalu datang selama kalian prepare sebaik-baiknya gitu. Itu. Ini terakhir, kalau mau hubungin saya lewat email, Instagram, atau kalau mau mentorship, boleh cek ke Edu Indonesia. Thank you. Thank you, Indah.
Oke, thank you, Kak. Udah sharing banyak hal ya. Oke, kalau teman-teman mau kepoin tentang Etude, mungkin bisa ke IG yang tadi udah di-highlight sama Kak Suci ya. Dan ini, Suci Arianti, itu mau kalau Kak Suci bisa, kalau Etude-nya @Etude Indonesia.
Iya, kalau teman-teman butuh mentorship kali ya, aku dihubungi lewat situ. Aku mau mungkin tunjukin yang ini kali, kalau ada pertanyaan. Tadi soalnya di
Iya.
Mungkin ada beberapa pertanyaan, boleh.
Oke. kita akan adakan sesi tanya jawab. Teman-teman boleh menanyakan apapun yang berkaitan dengan beasiswa itu mungkin, atau mungkin yang masih berkaitan dengan topik diskusi kita hari ini. Oke, teman-teman disilahkan untuk bertanya. Boleh tanya melalui fitur chat box ini, ataupun menanyakan langsung, boleh. Nah, mengingat pemerintah sudah sebenarnya ini ya Kak, memberikan seperti bantuan langsung kayak gitu, bantuan langsung tunai. Apakah menurut Kakak efektif sebenarnya kalau itu buat solusi bisnis dan ekonomi di saat-saat kayak gini?
Bantuan langsung tunainya kayaknya ada beberapa ini ya, beberapa bentuk ya.
Mm-mm.
Ada yang berupa internet, ada yang
Iya,
berupa, benar nggak?
iya.
Yang ada juga yang dalam bentuk prakerja gitu.
Ada juga yang bentuk
Oh,
makanan juga ada.
iya ada bentuk makanan. Kalau mau, ada juga yang mungkin pekerja di bawah 5 juta ya, dapat tunjangan sekian ratus ribu per bulan.
Mm-mm.
Kalau mau dibilang efektif, kalau dari kacamata orang awam, saya rasa lumayan cukup membantu buat teman-teman yang lagi struggle. Apalagi kalau misalnya saya baca-baca di news sih, di berita, kalau bahkan untuk orang-orang yang lagi mengalami kredit atau yang lagi jalan kredit mobil, kredit konsumtif, apa rumah itu juga dapat potongan. Jadi nggak gampang tentunya kasih tunjangan untuk sekian ratus juta
Iya.
orang di Indonesia, tapi effort-nya udah cukup oke dan lumayan lah buat ngebantu. Tapi mau dibilang 100% efektif juga pasti debatable sih. Dari sisi faktor mana dulu nih mau dibilang efektif atau enggak. Dan kebetulan aku nggak pernah analisis itu. Tapi in short ngelihatnya lumayan. Gitu. Karena kadang orang kan suka ngebandingin ya sama, ya kalau di Eropa bahkan di rumah aja full bisa dapat tunjangan, makanan, tenang, kerjaan lancar dan
Iya.
segala macam. Kita nggak akan pernah bisa bandingin itu sih. Karena
Karena skalanya beda
regulasi,
ya Kak.
betul, skalanya beda, regulasi di Eropa sama di Indonesia juga beda. Dan masyarakatnya juga beda persepsinya ke pemerintah gitu. Banyak kayak di Swedia dulu tuh masyarakatnya kepercayaannya ke pemerintahnya tuh cukup tinggi gitu. Jadi kalau pemerintahnya bilang A, semua nurut bilang A gitu. Kalau pemerintah bilang pakai masker, semua nurut pakai masker. Jadi nggak banyak debate. Tapi kalau di Indonesia kan karena kita demokrasi juga ya negaranya. Jadi lumayan banyak debate-debate yang kadang justru kita miss the whole points gitu untuk keep everyone safe atau diri sendiri safe dulu. Itu cuma dari sudut pandangku.
Iya Kak. Oke. Kalau boleh tahu Kak Suci udah berapa lama ini di Jerman?
Baru seminggu. Jadi waktu aku say oke ke Indah waktu itu emang belum tahu akan ke sini. Jadi pas kayak 2 minggu yang lalu deh baru dapat. Kebetulan aku juga terkena itu efek mobility yang
Oh,
tadi gitu. Karena aku seharusnya dari Maret kemarin berangkat, tapi karena COVID jadi belum bisa berangkat sampai sekarang bulan apa? Oktober. Tapi kebetulan sih student visa aku udah selesai karena master programnya juga udah kelar. Tapi jadi ini emang mendadak. Terus pas udah di sini ya nggak apa-apa sih. Sekalian bangun pagi.
oke.
Gitu.
Oh iya, kalau di Jerman regulasinya seperti apa Kak dari pemerintah sendiri?
Kalau di Jerman jadi di sini sih sekarang semua orang pakai masker juga. Nah kebetulan karena aku baru nyampe seminggu yang lalu, jadi memang karantina mandiri dulu. Harusnya semua orang pas sampai ke Jerman itu melakukan harus di-swab gitu. Tapi entah kenapa pas aku sampai waktu itu nggak ada swab-nya di airport. Jadi aku langsung pulang langsung ke tempat sekarang, langsung ke rumah. Terus sempat konfirmasi ke public health agency-nya bahwa iya aku harus tetap swab ke Pemda gitu. Di-swab secara gratis, tapi kalaupun memang nggak mau di-swab harus karantina mandiri 2 minggu. Secara singkat gitu, karena, lumayan banyak tuh terms and condition-nya swab, kalau mau lebih cepet swab-nya sekali, 2 kali, gitu-gitu. Tapi aku agak takut sebenarnya untuk di-swab. Jadi ternyata ada option untuk karantina mandiri aja. Jadi selama ini sempat keluar sekali, tapi setelah ngobrol sama public health agency nggak keluar lagi. Tapi hampir semua orang pakai masker terus sih di kota ini. Aku di Jerman Utara. Terus, karena case di Jerman juga lagi naik ya, lagi tinggi, dan hampir keseluruhan Eropa kayaknya masuk ke gelombang kedua gitu. Tapi mulai hari Senin besok Jerman lockdown juga selama sebulan
Wow,
gitu.
oke.
Ya,
Langsung masuk ke sesi tanya jawab aja ya, Kak ya?
ya.
Oke, ini dari Namila Witri Bratanaya, sorry. Kak, saya mau bertanya, ketika mencoba mendaftarkan diri ke beasiswa Swedia itu harus tes TOEFL atau IELTS, iya kah?
Dua-duanya boleh. Kalau IELTS itu 6, ini kalau soal skor ya, aku saranin jaga di 6,5 minimal rata-rata. Kalau TOEFL, tergantung apakah IBT, apakah yang satu lagi, apa tuh namanya, PBT, IBT, ada satu lagi aku lupa. Tapi pokoknya yang equal tuh, gimana?
Kok yang computer based?
Iya, CBT ya, computer based. Ya, jadi pokoknya yang equal to IELTS 6,5 itu, karena aku dulu sebenarnya pakainya IELTS, jadi agak kurang familiar sama TOEFL. Tapi yang equal to IELTS 6,5 sih itu dijaga. Kalau di Swedia pakainya standar English 6. English 6 itu sama dengan IELTS 6,5.
Jadi per bandnya 6 ya kayaknya?
Per bandnya minimal tidak boleh di bawah 5,5.
Oke.
Tapi itu balik lagi tergantung program dan kampusnya sih. Karena nanti tiap program punya standarnya sendiri-sendiri. Mungkin kayak social studies, mereka require 7,0 gitu. Tapi mungkin untuk mathematics gitu, nggak apa-apa 6. Tapi in general, jaganya di 6,5 aja kalau IELTS.
Oke. Jadi pilih jalan aman 6,5. Oke, ke pertanyaan selanjutnya yaitu dari Ana Miftahul Khairat. Kak izin bertanya, kenapa Kak Suci milih kuliah di Swedia dan tantangan apa saja yang dihadapi saat mendaftar beasiswa tersebut?
Jadi dulu itu memang aku scholarship hunter gitu. Seperti banyak teman-teman lainnya juga apply ke banyak beasiswa. Sempat apply ke New Zealand Award Scholarship ditolak. Sempat coba ke Chevening ke UK ditolak. Coba ke Fulbright ke US ditolak juga. Terus coba LPDP juga ditolak. Jadi banyak. Maksudnya kalau mau sejujurnya alasannya adalah karena aku coba berbagai macam beasiswa dan alhamdulillahnya dapat di Swedia. Tapi setiap kali apply beasiswa memang kita harus pelajarin negara tersebut. Itu sih. Jadi mungkin kayak sebelumnya knowledge aku tentang Swedia nggak gitu banyak, tapi menjelang apply justru jadi banyak tahu gitu tentang Swedia yang sebelumnya nggak tahu gitu. Kayak ternyata banyak brand-brand di Indonesia yang udah terkenal itu dari Swedia. Ternyata Swedia itu bagus banget sustainability culture-nya. Terus ternyata di Swedia itu work-life balance-nya tuh bagus banget gitu. Dan setelah alhamdulillahnya diterima, ya akhirnya ke sana justru belajar kan lebih banyak lagi. Tapi tantangan yang dihadapi saat mendaftar beasiswa itu, aku dulu prepare beasiswa sekalian kerja full time. Jadi tantangannya lebih yang kayak bagi waktu di antara kerja dan prepare tentang dokumen-dokumen beasiswa. Apalagi karena waktu itu tuh aku set goal atau set timeline buat diri sendiri itu adalah ketika IELTS-ku 6,5 sudah terpenuhi. IELTS kan berlaku cuma 2 tahun ya.
Iya.
Jadi selama 2 tahun itulah harus maksimal mungkin apply ke sana kemari gitu. Jadi selama 2 tahun itu konstan banget sih. Selalu apply kampus, tiap malam bikin esai, selalu apply scholarship, ditolak, apply lagi, bikin esai lagi ulang. Karena kan beda beasiswa juga harus beda esainya, beda kampus, beda esai, beda negara, beda lagi yang jadi concern. Itu konstan selama 2 tahun. Jadi motivated lagi dan atur waktu sebaik-baiknya gitu.
Oke. Jadi nggak ada yang gampang ya Kak ya langsung ini diterima itu enggak. Semuanya pasti butuh usaha dan proses ya Kak.
Setuju. Semuanya di berbagai aspek ya.
Iya. Oke. Ada lagi pertanyaan nih Kak dari Aura. Permisi Kak, penanganan pandemik di Jerman atau Swedia gimana ya? Apakah lebih baik dan juga ada tips untuk belajar bahasa kedua? Dan bahasa apa yang menurut Kakak bagus untuk dipelajari?
Penanganan pandemik di Jerman atau di Swedia? Kalau di Swedia sebenarnya kan sempat tuh kemarin ada video-video viral ya yang tentang di Swedia nggak pakai masker. Aku tahu dari temen juga sih, nggak lihat full videonya, tapi Swedia dari awal corona lumayan sensasional gitu berita-beritanya. Dan kebetulan aku pulang itu sempat pulang ke Indo di akhir Februari, dan corona lebih strong beritanya itu di Maret. Jadi kalau soal penanganan ini juga berdasarkan dari informasi teman-teman yang di Swedia juga sih. Itu sejauh ini memang di Swedia orang nggak pakai masker, tapi aku bisa bilang itu karena culture-nya orang Swedia beda sama culture orang-orang tropis gitu kayak Indonesia. Karena bahkan sebelum adanya corona mereka sangat strict untuk melakukan jaga jarak gitu loh. Kayak culture budaya mereka memang mereka tuh punya high privacy level. Jadi orang tuh nggak mau invade privacy orang lain gitu. Jadi bahkan ketika ngantri pun emang udah biasa ngantri 1 meter jaraknya gitu. Yang kalau sama orang asing nggak ngomong juga udah biasa. Terus juga kalau nggak penting-penting banget nggak kumpul-kumpul gitu. Kalau nggak deket-deket banget juga nggak banyak ngobrol. Kayak itu culture yang kita di Indonesia nggak punya sih menurutku. Maksudnya kita kan sangat ramah ya orang Indonesia.
Iya, betul
Jadi
Kak.
kadang baru kenal sekali 5 menit udah tahu rumahnya tinggal di mana, anaknya berapa gitu. Kalau di Swedia mungkin bisa tahu dia tinggal di mana itu setelah 2 minggu gitu. Misal kalau mau dibandingin. Jadi penanganannya beda. Kalau untuk masker sebelumnya tidak begitu maksudnya nggak ada yang pakai masker, tapi baru banget kemarin aku dapat berita dari temanku karena angkanya naik. Jadi untuk beberapa kota sudah mulai dihimbau untuk pakai masker, tapi belum di keseluruhan Swedia. Terus kalau dari awal sampai sekarang setauku yang wajib untuk di rumah itu untuk student di atas 16 tahun. Student di atas 16 tahun itu dianggap sudah cukup bertanggung jawab sama dirinya sendiri gitu. Sudah cukup tahu harus belajar kapan, harus berhenti kapan, harus makan kapan. Tapi kalau untuk anak-anak di bawah 16 tahun tuh masih cukup susah untuk tahu harus apa gitu, apalagi teman-teman yang SD, anak-anak SD, anak TK gitu. Itu sih setauku masih tetap ke sekolah sampai sekarang. Bahkan untuk anak-anak di bawah 16 tahun tuh tetap boleh melakukan aktivitas olahraga gitu di luar. Tapi banyak juga kalau di Swedia tuh test kit kayak bukan rapid, swab test kit tuh yang dikirim ke rumah masing-masing. Jadi tiap orang kayak udah cukup teredukasi untuk melakukan swab sendiri di rumah gitu. Yang nggak tahu deh kalau misalnya di Indonesia gimana kan nanti. Karena itu pasti kan ada tahapan-tahapan dan kayak apa sih namanya, bukan training ya, tapi step by step-nya itu kan strict. Dan apakah semua lagi-lagi orang Swedia percaya tinggi sama pemerintahnya dan membaca sebaik-baiknya gitu apapun yang dihimbau gitu. Jadi kurang lebih gitu kalau di Swedia. Kalau di Jerman karena saya juga baru ya, jadi ini dengar karena di sini ada suami, jadi dengar dari suami aja sih gimana penanganannya sejauh ini. Dan lebih ngelihat kayak semua orang wajib pakai masker. Tapi kalau kantor sama kayak di Indonesia sih, banyak yang WFA juga. Terus lebih baik, apa tadi pertanyaan kedua, belajar bahasa ya? Belajar bahasa kedua ya?
Iya.
Lebih baik dan juga ada tips untuk belajar bahasa kedua. Kalau udah maksimal di bahasa Inggris, itu udah bekal banget sih. Tapi sebagai non-native speaker, menurutku karena bahkan orang native juga menurutku kadang nggak berbicara 100% grammarly correct gitu.
Iya.
Ya kan? Sama kayak kita sebagai orang native Indonesia juga kadang SPOK-nya mungkin predikatnya di mana, keterangannya di mana,
Iya.
subjeknya di mana. Kayak native selalu begitu. Jadi sebagai orang asing, kalau udah bisa cukup bagus di bahasa Inggris itu udah bagus banget. Karena kalau lanjut kuliah juga, kalau S2 itu banyak English program. Jadi nggak masalah. Kecuali kalau teman-teman mau S1 dan S1 di Eropa. S1 di Eropa itu kebanyakan sih di negara masing-masing programnya banyak yang bahasa lokal. Kayak di Jerman gitu, S1-nya sih rata-rata semua bahasa Jerman, jadi harus belajar bahasa Jerman. Tapi kalau di Swedia lumayan ada beberapa kampus yang S1 bahasa Inggris gitu. Itu cuma kalau memang mau belajar bahasa kedua atau ketiga gitu selain bahasa Inggris, ya nggak apa-apa juga. Mungkin tipsnya apa ya, tadi ya bahasa yang menurut kakak bagus untuk dipelajari. Mungkin coba apa tujuan teman-teman belajar bahasa ketiga dulu, karena yang wajib itu bahasa Inggris, itu bahasa kedua menurutku. Tapi kalau bahasa ketiga, balik lagi tujuannya apa. Kalau misalnya mau kerja di negara tertentu setelah kuliah di negara tersebut, itu sangat dianjurkan untuk belajar bahasa ketiga. Menurutku. Dan atau kalau misalnya pengen belajar dari Indonesia untuk hobi sendiri, coba aja bandingin bahasa mana yang paling banyak dipakai sama orang-orang di seluruh dunia gitu. Karena itu yang bakal paling banyak kepake. Kayak aku pas di Swedia belajar bahasa Swedia kan, karena aku di sana dan waktu itu memang pengennya setelah kuliah cari opportunity kerja. Tapi bahasa Swedia cuma dipakai sama 11 juta penduduknya. Yang mungkin sekian persennya ada internationally ada di mana. Tapi chance untuk ngobrol bahasa Swedia di pesawat atau di random airport itu nggak banyak. Kecuali kalau teman-teman mungkin belajar bahasa Jerman. Itu orang Jerman ada di mana-mana. Atau belajar bahasa Cina. Itu di mana-mana ada orang Chinese gitu. Jadi kalau emang mau belajar bahasa out of hobbies, mendingan consider yang banyak dipakai sama orang-orang di dunia. Yang nomor satu tuh setauku Chinese ya. Chinese, Indian, terus English, sama kayak populasi negaranya. Iya, Spanyol, bener Spanyol. Gitu.
Jadi itu ya tadi apa namanya yang nanya, cari bahasa yang paling banyak digunakan, cari aman. Bahasa Inggris juga penting.
Bahasa Inggris wajib.
Penting banget.
Iya.
Mungkin teman-teman ada lagi yang ditanyakan? Masih ada waktu?
Boleh. Ini teman-temannya di rumah, semua posisinya lagi libur panjang kan ya?
Di rumah, Kak. Di rumah masing-masing.
Iya, libur cuti bersama ya kalau nggak salah.
Sama apa ya, Kak? Mungkin kalau pendaftaran beasiswa selama persiapan itu mungkin kalau di masa pandemi lebih challenging ya, Kak ya?
Lumayannya lebih ke tes. Misalnya kalau teman-teman belum punya IELTS, itu IELTS tes sejauh ini lebih disarankan untuk tes datang ke tempat tes gitu. Tapi untuk beberapa bulan terakhir kemarin itu ada institusi yang mengeluarkan online test temporary gitu. Jadi untuk keperluan berangkat di tahun ini aja. Tapi sampai sekarang masih belum tahu nih mana. Udah ada beberapa kota kayaknya yang udah bisa buka IELTS tes langsung ke tempat tesnya. Tapi selain dari tes IELTS, menurutku hampir semuanya kan kita kerjain sendiri ya, kayak esai, build CV, nulis sih mostly, terus sama requirement lain kan lebih yang ke surat sehat. Mungkin surat sehat juga agak lebih sulit karena harus ke hospital, tapi itu nggak direkomendasikan ke hospital. Tapi sisanya preparation semua udah bisa online. Cuma tinggal apakah kita terbiasa untuk belajar online gitu. Karena kan kadang kayak dulu saya IELTS preparation itu tetap muka ke kelas. Tapi sekarang kalau online seberapa bisa kita maksimalin interaksi kalau lagi preparation, kalau ada guru gitu. Dan itu balik lagi sih gimana masing-masing orangnya. Tapi in general banyak banget yang bisa dikerjain dari rumah menurutku.
Oke. Tapi tetap ya Kak, jaga motivasi untuk tetap
Mm-mm,
belajar dan produktif itu kalau di rumah
betul,
mungkin sangat
betul, 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 betul.
betul. Dan ini ada pertanyaan dari Alif Alfian Surur. Tantangan kuliah di Jerman Kak, karena banyak orang yang bilang susah. Kalau dari pengalaman Kak Suci sendiri bagaimana? Sebenarnya Kak Suci nggak kuliah di Jerman.
Betul. Saya nggak kuliah di Jerman, saya kuliahnya di Swedia. Saya di Jerman karena ada suami sebenarnya. Dari cerita, ini dari cerita-cerita. Oh Swedia, kalau di Jerman sendiri bahasa Jerman harus kuat. Misalnya aku dengar dari info-info, bahasa Jermannya harus strong. Tapi kalau di Swedia 80% orang bisa bahasa Inggris gitu. Jadi kalaupun di kampus pakai bahasa Inggris, sehari-harinya pun nggak masalah juga pakai bahasa Inggris gitu. Nah, tapi kalau tantangan kuliah di Swedia, culture-nya beda. Kayak misalnya kalau di Indonesia kita kan punya apa namanya, panggilan hormat ya, kayak Bu siapa, Pak siapa gitu. Kalau di Swedia semuanya pakai nama, bahkan profesor, dekan itu semuanya kita panggil pakai nama gitu, nggak ada sir, nggak ada Pak. Jadi karena di Swedia itu culture-nya semuanya equal, maunya semua equal, semua setara. Jadi jangan ada sir atau mister, itu semua orang maunya pakai nama gitu. Awal-awal lumayan sulit ngebiasainnya karena pikirannya kan kayak manggilnya Mr. Jonas, tapi akhirnya lama-lama get used to manggil semua orang dengan nama doang. Nah justru yang sulit ketika akhirnya udah selesai dari Swedia, terus aku pulang ke Indo. Terus kayak oke, balik lagi gitu. Terus kalau di email memudahkan tuh, kayak kalau di email kita nggak perlu bingung ini yang email tuh perempuan atau laki-laki gitu kan ya. Kadang kalau misalnya di bahasa Indonesia tuh ini Mbak atau Mas nih. Tapi kalau di Swedia semuanya nama pertama yang di email itu lah Hai Jonas gitu. Dan itu bahkan sama dosen juga gitu. Terus kalau kuliahnya lagi, kalau di Indonesia tuh ada IPK kan ya 0 sampai 4,0. Kalau di Swedia itu in general itu hanya ada 3 indikator, itu fail, pass with distinctive. Jadi 3 itu aja, nggak ada skor clear berapanya. Paling kalaupun ada beberapa student yang mau request, mau di-convert bisanya ke A, B, C, D, E, F kayak standar Eropa lainnya. Tapi in general semuanya 3. Jadi buat orang-orang yang high achiever, yang biasanya kerja keras IPK tinggi, itu lumayan struggle tuh dapat 3 indikator yang kayak gitu. Karena bisa jadi di angka terbawah itu tetap ada di pass with distinctive misalnya, atau tipis tuh pas sama pass with distinctive tapi tetap pass with distinctive. Sedangkan dia yang ada orang yang itu tadi high achiever lagi, meskipun dia di tinggi tapi tetap di pass with distinctive. Gitu. Jadi balik lagi tuh reflect ke culture-nya yang mereka pengen semua orang dapat kesempatan yang sama dan equal gitu. Gitu. Dan buat yang mungkin yang kurang dan butuh belajar terus, itu lumayan motivate mereka gitu untuk kayak, oh I'm not that bad gitu, masih bisa pas kayak gitu. Itu terus kuliahnya juga kalau di dulu waktu aku di IPB, satu semester kan ada 7-8 mata kuliah ya, kalau 3 SKS, 24 SKS. Itu satu semester semuanya 7-8 mata kuliah langsung kita pelajarin kan, dan UTS sama UTS tengah-tengah, UAS di akhir, tapi barengan gitu 6 bulan. Nah kalau di Swedia dari 6 bulan itu dipotong tengah-tengah. Jadi kayak 2,5 sampai 3 bulan awal belajar 2 mata kuliah, fokus, selesai misalnya di Oktober, nanti November pindah ke 2 mata kuliah yang lain. Mungkin ini karena master program juga, tapi info lainnya dari bachelor juga gitu sih. Jadi studennya nggak yang 7 mata kuliah sekalian gitu. Ini kayak dibagi 2, jadi bisa fokus. Gitu. Gitu.
Ini ada pertanyaan selanjutnya dari Siti Julaiha. Kak, untuk mendapatkan beasiswa LPDP itu ada syarat khusus nggak ya? Terus LPDP itu beasiswa dalam negeri apa luar negeri? Kak Suci nggak LPDP.
Iya, aku kebetulan LPDP apply dulu, tapi ditolak. Tapi memang LPDP berubah-berubah terus setiap tahun syaratnya. Sama kayak misalnya tahun ini karena corona, ternyata kategorinya yang keluar cuma 2. LPDP itu bisa dilihat di website lpdp.id kayaknya, untuk melihat syaratnya, dan itu beasiswa dari Kementerian Keuangan. Nah, ini beasiswanya bisa buat dalam negeri dan luar negeri dua-duanya. Balik lagi tergantung kategorinya sih. Sebelumnya tuh kategorinya bisa lebih dari 20 kayaknya. Nah, karena corona inilah jadinya cuma 2 gitu. Itu yang jadi lumayan problem signifikannya. Bahkan sampai bulan lalu atau 2 bulan lalu tuh belum ada info sama sekali soal LPDP. Jadi banyak kan yang udah mulai prepare. Tapi untuk syarat khususnya perlu dicek tiap di kategori tersebut harus apa. Misalnya kalau dulu aku ada sesi administratif, terus ada interview, ada focus group discussion gitu. Sekarang mungkin udah nggak cuma 3 itu, ada lagi kayak tes psikotes atau apa, aku nggak tahu. Gitu, kurang mengikuti. Tapi bisa dicek di lpdp.id atau lpdp.org.
Iya, jadi teman-teman kalau misalnya penasaran dengan beasiswa LPDP bisa dicek langsung di websitenya ya. Mungkin ada lagi yang mau ditanyakan teman-teman? Masih ada satu kesempatan terakhir untuk bertanya. Tidak ada yang bertanya? Jika tidak ada yang bertanya, maka kita cukupkan sesi tanya jawab hari ini. Oke. Mungkin itu saja Kak. Terima kasih atas waktunya dan ilmu yang sudah dibagikan. Kami dari teman-teman misalnya cuma mengucapkan terima kasih yang banyak.
Sama-sama teman-teman Indah dan teman-teman KKN Wali Songo Semarang ya, UIN Wali Songo Semarang.
Iya Kak.
Terima kasih banyak undangannya.
Terima kasih. Oke. Dan cukup itu saja mungkin yang bisa kami sampaikan dari panitia. Kami ucapkan terima kasih untuk teman-teman yang udah ikut join dan mendengarkan dari awal acara hingga akhir. Kalian semua luar biasa dan panitia tentunya yang sudah mempersiapkan ini dari jauh-jauh hari. Terima kasih. Oke, mungkin kita boleh take foto Kak?
Boleh. Silakan.
Oke. Untuk teman-teman dipersiapkan ya, diaktifkan videonya. Kita bisa ambil foto. Mungkin dari slide pertama. Apakah sudah siap? Baik, ada 5 slide ya. Oke. Oke, slide pertama. Bisa saya mulai untuk take foto? Ya. Kita mulai ya dari slide pertama. 1, 2, 3. Oke. Oke, kita pindah ke slide selanjutnya. Slide kedua, mana ini yang mengaktifkan kamera? Tidak ada yang mengaktifkan kamera. Baik, tidak apa. Oke, slide kedua, 1, 2, 3. Baik, lanjut ke slide selanjutnya, yaitu slide ketiga. 1, 2, 3. slide selanjutnya. Keempat. 1, 2, 3. Kita lanjut ke slide terakhir. 1, 2, 3. Baik. Baik, teman-teman, terima kasih sudah meluangkan waktu untuk mengikuti acara ini dari awal hingga selesai. Kami selaku panitia mengucapkan terima kasih dan mohon maaf yang sebesar-besarnya apabila masih ditemui banyak sekali kekurangan maupun persiapan dari kami. Dan bisa kita akhiri dengan bacaan hamdalah. Alhamdulillah. Sekian dari kami. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.